Welcome to Zen Live, or a new metaphor for your toolbox to open up the hood of your mind to see how it's working. You can't fix the car unless you open up the hood to see how it works. You can't rewrite your computer program unless you learn the code of the computer. So, metaphors are the tools with which we can get a handle on the operating system of our mind. You see, because we are a mind, we're a mental process trying to understand a mental process. So, there's a paradox here, you see. So we need a tool. And that's why metaphorical thinking is the means or the tool that awareness can use in order to open up its own mind and to see what's going on. And this has to happen in real time. In other words, you have to be able to see what your mind's doing as it's doing it, not after the effect, which is what most of us do, and which is okay. But it won't be it won't be the actual changing of the mind. It'll just be a better understanding of the mind, but it'll still be intellectual. So I want to see the intellect as it's operating. I want to see it real time. Okay. So the title of today's metaphor is lift your leg. Exclamation point. It's kind of like a command. Lift your leg. I guess if a dog were learning how to pee, you'd say lift your. You're a father dog. You tell that lift your leg. That's what male dogs do. Lift your leg. Okay, well, we're not talking about dogs. We're talking about a compass, which has two legs, one stable, one moving. But let's read our Tolle quote for today, a little Kickstarter. This is Eckhart Tolle quotes taken from The Power of Now, and I have a whole box of them. And today's quote is, "Nothing strengthens the ego more than being right. Being right is identification with a mental position, a perspective, an opinion, a judgment, a story. For you to be right, of course, you need someone else to be wrong. And so the ego loves to make wrong in order to be right. Not only a person, but also a situation can be made wrong through complaining and reactivity." Now, we all know everyone who has to be right and people who complain and react to everything because it was not the way it was supposed to be. And Facebook is a great place for this field of right and wrong, opinion wars. That's the Facebook becomes like a fencing match with opinions, and we're trying to stab each other with our opinion, make them bleed, make them quit, make them give up. Okay, you're right, you win. So that's a great place to play, and also to transcend. Also to transcend. So, but let's talk about our metaphor and see if we can pull this cotton ball apart. That's kind of like what a metaphor. This is a metaphor. A cotton ball holds. A cotton ball is wisdom. You pull it apart. You feel the seeds in there. Pull it apart. The cat took it on the floor and actually pulled it apart, so I got to put it back together. But pulling the cotton ball apart makes it transparent. So the metaphor makes the opaque transparent to the transcendent. Now we'll get to what the transcendent is, but I think we can understand opaque and transparency. But let's get back to our metaphor of the compass. Now we all know what a compass is. You draw circles. One of my favorite programs, and I don't know why it's the Globe Trekker on Sunday night. I don't know why it's in repeats, and it doesn't seem to be making any new shows, but it opens with somebody on the beach drawing a circle of light. And we all know what a compass is. A compass requires, this is my little man here, as a compass. And a compass has a fixed point. If the compass, it won't work if it doesn't have a fixed point. And then the compass draws in expanding circles, depending on how long the thing is. It can be a little circle, it can be a big circle. But at some point it reaches the limit of the length of its leg, right? So it's not going to go any further. So it says here, so this is it, right? And this is the unknown. Unknown. And there's an English word for this, beyond the pale. Beyond. Beyond the pale. Beyond the length of my compass. I looked this up, and beyond the pale was a term used for feudal England, where beyond the barbarians, the Irish, the Welsh, the Scots were beyond the pale. So the English had a little, the wall, so like a compass, and this is the wall, right? And the barbarians, the unknown, the untamed, the uncivilized are beyond the pale. So the wall here is the pale. Okay? So this is the right. Right is inside, and wrong is outside, or the other, who is going to be wrong, you see. So you get this division of the world by the compass. Inside the compass, the familiar, under control. See, the compass can control. I could draw little circles, big circles, but at some point, the leg of my compass will not go any further. And that's the pale. That's where the universe stops expanding. The universe says, this is it, where I'm not going any further. Because to go any further, I have to give up my fixed point. You see, for the compass to go further, it has to give up its fixed point. So what is this fixed point, you see? Well, the fixed point is my sense of I, or me. It's called the ego. Jesus has a very strong comment about this when he says, unless the seed falls to the ground and dies, it stands alone. If it dies, it bears good fruit. Something like that. But the point is, unless the seed falls to the ground and dies, in other words, gives up its fixed point, it stands alone. It stands alone against all the others, you see. So it becomes a little feudal town, a little feudal city, where all of its value is in here. See? Value. Value is in there, and everything out there is a threat to my values. So the world, this compass really divides the world into a duality of I and it. So the I is the subject that sees, the observer, and everything it observes is an it. I talk about this a lot. This comes from Martin Buber. The I it and the I thou and the I you. All right. So the I it is a name for the ego. The ego is a duality of a subject, I, and an it, object. You can't have one without the other. Kind of like a mirror and a reflection. You can't have one without the other. So you get this subject, object, I, it, and this I, it compass depends upon having a fixed point of view. And this is very observable because even as I stand here, I have a fixed point of view. I'm standing here in Blackstone in this room, and I'm looking at you through this imaginary portal of the back of this iPod, you see, and there you are sitting there looking at your computer or iPod or whatever, you see. So this little iPod here, this little window, you see, is really it looks opaque because it's an it. I say iPod, that's an it. But what we're doing here is that the iPod is transcendent or transparent to you. It's quite magical, isn't it? So I'm looking at an it, but I'm really seeing you. I'm talking to you. And you're looking at the it, which is your computer, but you see me. And so you have here an I looking, a seer looking, and you are an I, a seer looking, and we are seeing each other. Why, it's like Avatar. I see you. And you say, I see you. Isn't that amazing? And we've transcended space and time. I don't know where you are. You don't know where so look it up on a map, but this device here, this magic window, has transcended space and time. And now you and I can meet as eye to eye, you see. Even though you can see me as an it, you're relating to me as an I. Unless you're sitting there comparing me to other opinions or perspectives and everything. Well, you're not as good as that guy. Then I'm an it. But if you're listening without objectification, without turning me into an it, then your I and my I are one. And there is a metaphorical union here. You see, so the metaphor is that the iPod, that you and I are the iPod, but we're not really the iPod. The iPod is the mediator, the bridge, the mediator, the connector. It's kind of like a marriage counselor, a matchmaker. He connects one subject with another subject, and that's called love. Two subjects becoming one. So the matchmaker connects not a subject to an it, something with qualities. You can't love something with qualities because that's just relating it's valuable to you. That's still I, it. But when I, it dies, you have I, thou, which is two I's becoming one through a mediator, through a metaphor. So, continuing our metaphor of the compass, you can get the idea that this one leg of the compass has to be fixed in time and space, you see. Now, a good example that and every example should be something in everyday mind, something that we all experience universally. And what we're all experiencing universally now is the difference between a flat map and a GPS. Okay? Now, a flat map is when you're going somewhere and your wife or your husband is sitting next to you with the map. Now, the map is basically a metaphor for our common sense world, for our materialistic, secular world of facts that are things in space and time. And we just assume automatically that the world is stable and flat and that we're all seeing the same world. We're all seeing the same external world. So each of us then, from this materialistic viewpoint, is located on a point on the map. Where am I? I'm in Blackstone. Where are you? I don't know. But you're located at some point, and if you Google up a map, you can find a little X. Well, there I am. Then you can zoom in, see the house. Zoom in, see the backyard. Oh, there I am, standing in the backyard. You see. Or zoom out until you see the whole earth, you see. But the assumption here is that we're all on some flat, unstable world, you see. And so the compass is based on this fixed point here of me fixed in the world, and then I can, of course, move my point around, but it's on a flat map. The map doesn't move. You get the idea? And this is just common sense, and it's nothing wrong with it. It's just that we need it to catch a bus and to get away from the tiger. But it's an objective view, and it doesn't include the whole view. It doesn't include the whole truth. It includes half the truth. It's an objective view of the world, which has become, in the modern scientific West, the only view. And that's breaking down now. And we're breaking it down with our technology. So so in other words, so if on the flat map now, if I've got to get to some place here, there's only going to be one straight line to it. And if I vary off of it, I'm wrong. You see, so there's only going to be one right way to go. And then everything else is wrong, and your navigator is going to let you know if you make a wrong turn. You idiot, you just missed the turn. So the other metaphorical new way of orientation in the world is the GPS. And if you'll notice there, on the GPS map, it's not flat. It's not stable. It changes. In fact, if you take, well, maybe not a step, well, yeah, all right, if you go half a block, the map orientates around you. So you and the world are moving together in synchronicity. You step, the world orientates. And you have an intention, I want to get to so-and-so. And no matter which way you turn, you're always going there. Or if you get there and you want to go back home, no matter which way you turn, you're always going home. And the navigator will say, turn left, turn right. They never get mad at you. They never call you an idiot. You're never wrong. There's just turns. You're always going home. Your intention is to go home. If you write in your intention, you're going to go there. One way or the other. If you take 2 years or 10 minutes, makes no difference. You're always going home. There's never a wrong turn. But the point is that the world is fluid and changes with you. So you are active in creating the world on the GPS. You are passive on the flat map. You are in the world on the flat map, and the world, you don't change the world. You don't make Blackstone closer to you. You see? In other words, and there's morality on the flat map, right and wrong. There's a right way to go, and there's a wrong way to go. You see, so the whole thing, these two ways of being in the world are right juxtaposed right next to each other as metaphors, you see. So, on the GPS map, there is no fixed point in space and time, in the sense that since space and time, which is the world, reboots itself around you, you see, it's kind of like a glove. It's kind of like the inside and the outside moving together. So I'm the inside, and if I move, the outside forms around me. Isn't that interesting? So is this true? I mean, does the world really form around you as you move through the world? Do we create the world around us as an exterior of ourself? There's an interior of me, of my little I, my little fixed point, my little I thought, my me, which is a supreme value. I don't want to die. Supreme value. And everything has value in relationship to the fixed point of I. This is easy to see. If 1,000 people die in China, that's too bad. If 1,000 people die in another city, that's really bad. Or if 100 people die in another city in America, that's really bad. But if 2 people die in my town, that's terrible. And if 1 person dies in my family, which is the closest to me, that is a catastrophe. See? So as the compass brings its, like the circles of the compass would be like value boundaries, you see. So the furthest away something happens, the least value it has. But the closer it gets to me, my fixed point, the more value it has. So everything in my house has much more value than the stuff in the town or the stuff in the state or the country, you see. So as the other leg of the it, you see, I is the center and it is the circle, the circumference, you see. Whatever I see is an it. And its value is determined by how close the circumference is to me. But the I compass, the ego, will only extend out so far before it begins to lose its fixed sense of being fixed, you see. So you don't want to go too far because you'll lose your leg, your stable leg, you see. It's like a tent, the tent pole, you see. So the tent pole is stable when it's sticking up and down, you see. But anyway, we're playing with this metaphor to get an idea of why this fixed point, which we call the ego, or I, it, you see, is not really fixed at all. It's a fiction. It's a point of view necessary to function in the material world. But when it comes to understanding who I am and why I suffer and why I've divided the world into right and wrong, and you being wrong and me always being right, why everything shapes up like that, we can only understand it when we realize that this idea, this idea of me as a fixed and stable something, a soul, a personality, a me, you see, why this is the fixity, the sensation of being fixed is a viewpoint that we need in order to stabilize the world, to stabilize consciousness. And so we fear that leg lifting up because the world become unstable. Well, psychosis is having no fixed point. It's like a snowstorm, a whiteout, when you can't see the horizon or a tree or a sign. No fixed point. Panic. Or you're in the desert and you look around and there's no fixed point. Panic. Or you're in a forest and you can't see anything but trees. There's no fixed point. Panic, you see. So to lose that fixed point creates panic, terror, disorientation. And the medical terminology would be psychosis, which is kind of like worse than death, you know. In Alzheimer's, it's also feared because there's no fixed point in Alzheimer's. There's no ego. There's no memory. There's no fixed point for the personality. It's been lifted up. The person is just here, seeing everything for the first time. There's no continuity, you see. So that's, Alzheimer is like a metaphor for the terror of losing our fixed point. And that's all value. You see, the fixed point gives us value. So, but the problem is, you see, well, not the problem, but what's happened is that, other societies, and it's very easy to see with primitive tribes, primitive societies, because their fixed point is going to be a mountain, or take Pandora in Avatar. The fixed point was the home tree. The fixed point was the home tree. And if you took down the home tree, the ant colony would all go blah, 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 all over the place, you see. So the home tree fixed the tribal mind of the Navi. And each Navi had their own home tree. So every tribe has its home tree, has its external fixed point. If you're in an army, it used to be that the battle flag was the fixed point. And as long as that was flying, the army would integrate and orientate around that flag. But if it fell, the army could disintegrate. And everybody would be, every man for himself. You see, that's the terror of the army. Once it loses its cohesive power, it's dead. That's what happened to the Inca. When Cortez, was that who went to the Inca? Was it, I guess, whatever his name was. He went there with a couple of hundred Spanish soldiers, and they were surrounded by 10,000 Inca warriors. And the Inca king, who was a god-man, who was the integrating center of that tribe, went down to talk to these people. And the Spaniards just captured him. And the Inca army disintegrated. They lost their fixed point. Their consciousness collapsed. Their consciousness, their orientation in the world collapsed. So the fixed point, you see, when it's external, is defended by the hornets, by the army ants. That queen, that fixed point is defended, you see. And so we see that today with religions. Religions always have a fixed point. Mecca is the fixed point of Islam. The cross, or Catholicism, the Vatican and the Pope is the fixed point. Protestantism is portable, so the fixed point is the Bible. So it's a portable fixed point. If you got a Bible in your room that's open, well, there's your fixed point. You see. It's got to be open so people can come in and say, oh, you were just reading the Bible. Put your eyeglasses there. I had my evangelical sister-in-law, they put the Bible there and put some reading glasses next to it, so if you came in, I'm sorry to interrupt you, you were just reading the Bible. So anyway, so what we're getting a handle on here with this is a great metaphor Because all fear, see, when the fixed point is fixed because it's right. This is the right spot. Sheldon's spot in the Big Bang. This is the fixed point. Everything integrates around that. It's the right light, the right sound, the right air, the right view. This is it. Sheldon's spot, you see. And so we fix that in order to be orientated on a flat map. I had the right orientation. So my beliefs, my opinions, my assumptions all support the fixed point. So if somebody attacks my opinion, they're attacking my fixed point. And I rise up to defend it. And beliefs are supports the brick walls, the reinforcement to keep the fixed point from shaking in the wind of time and change, you see. And today we live in a fiercely changing world. The winds of change are blowing the tent. And the fixed, and if you look at this thing here as a tent, the fixed point here, so the fixed leg of the compass can also be seen of a tent. So now I'm going to get, because this is a shaky thing, you stand alone. When the seed falls on the ground and it doesn't die, it stands alone. So what do we have to do? I got to get more people under this tent. So the more people I can get under here who invest in that fixed compass leg, which is now a tent pole, the steadier the tent feels. So you have a political party with a tent pole. You got Trump and his base, or you got a religion. So any religion is going to be an umbrella under which people get to feel, to fix their compass leg, so it won't shake in the wind. You see, so it won't tremble in change. You see, because change threatens the fixed point, because the map. You see, the flat map, when the world is changing, the flat map becomes a treadmill. When things are not changing, the map feels flat and solid. Blackstone is a flat map that has been very solid. People come back here 60, 50 years, still go see the house I grew up in, still see the place I used to eat as a child. It's all here. It's all fixed in time. It's all held in place, and you feel secure. You feel like, oh, I'm something, because history has not changed, and this keeps me in place, you see. In the urban areas, changes rapidly. You go to the neighborhood you lived up in, it might be totally different. It might be bulldozed. It might be a parking lot, you see. It might be a slum. Oh, a lot of nice people lived here, and now look at it. You see, so this change. So when change happens, the flat map that we think is secure becomes a treadmill. And now the flat map is going, you're yanking up, I have a treadmill, and you can crank it up. When we first got it, there is a dial on there that if you turn it to the clockwise, it gradually increases the speed. But then you turn it back to a stopping point. But there's no block there. And if you turn it through that stopping point, it goes to max speed all at once. When my wife first started using it, she was going on it, and she was in control of the treadmill. She was on a GPS. GPS is like a treadmill, and when you walk, the treadmill turns the world so that the world reboots with you. You see, you're on a GPS is like being on a treadmill, and you're walking makes the world move around you. So you feel like you're going somewhere, but you're really walking in place. Anyway, so she finished walking on it, and curiosity, she just took that little dial and went through the block, and it went to max speed. And bam! She was lying on the floor on the treadmill with the thing running beneath her, screaming help. Fortunately, it wasn't. There was no damage. There was just a learning how to operate the treadmill. But the point is, the world today is being upped up a little bit, and the treadmill is going faster. And our tent poles and our compass fixed points are becoming a little shaky because you can't have a fixed point on a treadmill. You got to move with it. It's like a GPS. You got to keep going with it, you see. And so we're still living in a common sense reality that the world is fixed, and suddenly it's changing and it's freaking us out. Because our tent pole, our ego, our sense of I, our value system, everything is being questioned and shaken and threatened and blown around, you see. So that creates a longing for, a need for big tent authorities that will stabilize me. So even if you get into a cult, you feel stable. If you get into a gang, you feel stable. You get into a tribe and you think like the tribe. You surrender your seed. Remember the Christ thing? When the seed falls, unless the seed falls to the ground and dies, it stands alone. We can't stand to be alone. So what are we going to do? How can I keep my fixed point and die? So I'll bear fruit. You see, I want to bear fruit. How can I do that? That's a paradox. How can I die and still keep my fixed point? Well, I join a unique group that has a strong fixed point. I die into the group. I give up my identity to the group. I think like the group. I'm in groupthink. And I think I'm bearing fruit because now I know I'm right because all these people are right too. We're all right. I got a big right. And now there's a big wrong. So the bigger my right gets, the bigger the other gets. The bigger the enemy gets, you see, because they rise together. So when I'm in a big tent rightness, a political view, an ideology, a philosophy, a group opinion, whatever that tent is, you see, the other, the wrong, is going to grow with the same strength as my rightness, you see. Right and wrong. Right and wrong in the context of the ego needing to be right is going to rise together because it's a horseshoe. I and it. I'm right, you're wrong. So if I get into a big tent of rightness, that's going to create an equal point or an equal strength of wrong. Why is that? Because everything turns to zero. Everything is in balance. So if I get 20 positive points here, my enemy, my wrong, is going to have 20 negative points, you see. So if I add 20 rights here, I'm going to create 20 wrongs there. So the world will remain in balance or zero. But I see this as me against them. And why is the world against me? Well, I need the world to be against me so I can be right, so I can keep my fixed point. Anyway, we'll stop with that, and I hope lift your leg is a helpful metaphor, because the spiritual path is seeing where we have put our fixed point. And when you see it, you lift it. The seeing of the fixed point is the lifting of the fixed point. Because seeing is not the ego or the I-it. The I-it is everything is seen from a fixed point. But if you can see the fixed point, you're not a fixed point. You have no fixed point. You're just seeing. I see. I see. Aha, I see. Thanks for dropping in.